it. I nerd out, everybody, when our graphics is on point.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. It looks beautiful. Look at that frame.
So festive. Look, and the little garland.
I know. I love it. You are such a great designer. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, just disclaimer, everyone. I have another life. I've been a designer for 20 plus years. I used to work. I did a lot of work for the entertainment industry. So yeah, in case you're like, what the hell? Like, yeah, that's a whole other situation. But
I
yes,
love it. Jen is so
welcome. Yes. So Dr. Summer, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jen Fontanilla, my certified money coach here and fabulous co-host. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so always thrilled to be here. I'm so glad we are here for this week. And you all don't forget, first off, like and share this right now. If you are with us, hit that share button. If you are catching this on the replay, hashtag replay and share this. But we wanted to make sure we were here. We wanted to stay consistent. And so thank you for being here because we're normally on Thursdays, but this week we're showing up on Wednesday as well as next week. So don't forget to note that because we know you got busy lives and you probably weren't going to tune in on, New Year's Eve. So here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers to happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
Awesome. We have so many fabulous questions today that we need to get to. So let's jump right into this. Shall we, Jen?
Yes, I love your question. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this question. I'm so excited about your question too. Both of these questions really light me up. They really resonate with me. So let's get into this because I swear this question that I have today can really take us into like many episodes. So
I agree.
All right. So this question is, I have a friend that apologizes all of the time. It seems so insincere, and it drives me crazy. How can I address this? So, okay. I am not going to start with, let's address this first. I'm going to take us to the foundational aspects of this. So I absolutely love this question. And I don't know if I mentioned this on our last show, Jen, but this is also called or referred to as the sorry syndrome.
You did not.
I didn't.
There's an actual word for it.
Yes, there's like a diagnosis for this. It's called the sorry syndrome.
I'm going to use that. You're doing the sorry syndrome.
Right, exactly. So I thought, oh my gosh, totally forgot the last episode to mention that. So, all right. So for many, it's a condition or a way we have been taught. So for those of us who say, oh, I'm sorry for this. Somebody runs into you. You still say you're sorry, runs into you with their cart, slams the door on you by accident. You still say, oh, I'm sorry. So, and I think many times it's the way we were taught. It's what we've been conditioned to do. It's what we've been conditioned to, how we've been conditioned to behave, so to speak. And as a result, we say sorry. Also, we say sorry for some of us because of anxiety. It could be because of fear of offending someone. It can also be, according to Martin Antony, who's the director of anxiety research and the treatment lab at Ryerson University, it could be a safety behavior or an overprotective behavior, which are behaviors that are designed to protect an individual from aversive emotions or potential threat. So it's also could be seen as a defense mechanism of sorts, which all of this information, I love research, by the way, is really interesting. I know.
You're so nerdy. I love it.
I know. So I'm going to get into another research. Research that was done, another study that was done in Britain. And it was done by YouGov in 2015, which indicates that there are approximately 15, which they showed that there were 15 British sorries for every 10 American sorries. So when YouGov compared the world's largest English-speaking countries, England, Britain, and America, they basically said that the British tend to say sorry a bit more than Americans. So the vast majority of British and American adults would apologize for being late or getting in someone's way. The survey polled 1,000 Americans and 1,600 British.
Wow.
So they showed similarities in relation to 73% of British people would apologize for interrupting someone compared to 71% of Americans. And when doing a favor for someone but getting it wrong, 60% of British people would say sorry or apologize compared to 58% of Americans. I thought this was really interesting. These studies are so interesting to me. And I mentioned these studies because it's common for people, and I want to show that it's common for people to apologize. It really is.
It is. I mean, think about it, people. Like, you have that one friend that always, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. And even if they say something, it's like, Summer, have you been around somebody that they spoke up and then they said, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, why are you? And in my head, not to them, but in my head, I'm like, why are you saying you're sorry? It's okay that you spoke up. Right. And it made me think like, people are having some kind of worthiness issue or something, but go ahead. I mean, it's such an interesting topic that people even say this.
Oh, absolutely. And you bring up some valid point here in relation to really a confidence issue. You have a voice, so use that voice. Why are you apologizing for using the voice you've been given? So exactly, Jen, I think that's really important. And I mentioned this study. I mentioned those studies because it's common. As I said, it's common for people to apologize. It stems from, again, what we were taught. And additionally, these studies have found, not just these two studies, but other studies as well, have found that women tend to apologize more. And and it's kind of like a given. Like, I kind of knew that, but it was kind of really interesting to see in these studies. So what does over apologizing appear as? So how do we, like you had mentioned about that particular situation, about that person who spoke up and then apologized for speaking up, right? So how did you perceive that? You perceive that as, what is she doing apologizing, or he doing for apologizing for making a statement and using their voice? And again, it seems like strange, maybe insincere. It trivializes potentially further, apologies in the future apologies. It's also a way of potentially avoiding a conflict. So you might see somebody who doesn't like to get into conflict and apologizes for their own behavior, even though they weren't maybe at fault. You may have potentially a fear of abandonment, which is why you apologize frequently as well. It may just be an automatic reaction. And for all of these reasons, and there are a multitude of reasons and many others, we need to think, what can we do? If we even find ourselves doing this, like for instance, I found myself doing this quite a bit. And I think for me, it was just force of habit. It was just habit. So it became habitual. So I'd be in the grocery store, somebody'd run into me with their cart, or somebody would just like let the door, like a grocery door, slam before they, and not hold it open for me. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Or, oh, I'm sorry. And I didn't even like run the cart into them. They ran a cart.
It's your fault.
Right. And one day I came out of the aisle and I thought to myself, what the hell am I apologizing for?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? And so I'm like, you got to stop doing that. You must stop doing that. So some of the things we can do to turn that around a bit is say thank you instead of I'm sorry. So for instance, if somebody buys you a gift and you immediately think to yourself, oh my gosh, I should have done that before. I should have done the same thing. And you say, oh, I'm sorry, but I didn't get you one. Rather than saying I'm sorry, how about saying thank you? Showing gratitude versus, yes. I'm sorry. That's the first thing you say. No, just thank you would be fine. And, and not assuming guilt over what you didn't do. Just saying thank you. Work on the automatic reaction. So rather than immediately going to, I'm sorry, maybe hold back on that response and think about your response and say, oh, thank you. Or I got that. Or I get it. Or yes, I understand what you're saying. Think before you say you're sorry. Yeah. So that's it. Before the automatic reaction. Also recognize the underlying reasons for why. Why do you say you're sorry? Understand your own reasoning or rationale, for saying it. And then find balance between your own personal need to say sorry and also the consideration of others. So how do you find that balance between, being remorseful or sorry and being considerate of others or not saying sorry as much? Now, this is actually getting to the question, but I thought it was really important that we lay out kind of the foundation first before we got to the actual question. How do you address it with someone who apologizes too often? And I like what you said earlier on our other show, Jen, is that when we went through the foundational aspects, you said, it gets me to think about my own behavior in responding to those people that say sorry too much, or someone who is a chronic apologizer, or somebody who apologizes too much, right? So
yes,
so
it was like this light bulb, this giant lighthouse light. Is that even a phrase?
I know.
I make up stuff, guys. I just make up stuff. I don't know where it comes from. But I was just like, ooh, I'm a little mean. I can be mean. I can be very judgmental. And it was really good to hear, like, ooh, you know what? I didn't look at it the way Dr. Summer said. Like, people are dealing with, which is so ironic because this is what I deal with money coaching. I'm looking at what people grew up with, the habits and the belief systems that have been instilled. It is no different. Like, you're so right, Summer. Like, we've learned it from habit. We've learned it from what we were, like you even shared, you were taught like, oh, apologize, say sorry. Yes, so it's all these subconscious things have been ingrained in our patterns.
Right. Absolutely. You talk about the DNA of money, you know, and kind of like that learned behavior, what we were up with, what we were born with, what we were. So it's all the same concepts and how you apply them, right? Because at the end of the day, we're human. So even if we put a different label on it, let's say, for instance, what's that one label? Imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
So it's like they came up with a label for feeling inadequate or feeling like you shouldn't be somewhere or this shouldn't be your life or whatever the case may be, and they called it imposter syndrome. We all still felt those same things. There just wasn't a label.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So here we are, and we're apologizing, and we've all been through this where we've had those moments where we over apologize, but then there are those folks that apologize far too much. And it may be that we need to understand their why and take our own responsibility as to how we are going to react to somebody like that, because again, those people may not even be aware. So I am going to get to how you can actually address this with somebody, and that is just ask. Sometimes, as you said,
so freaking simple.
It's simple. It's simple. And you don't have to become abrasive in your questions or anything of that nature. What you could just potentially do is say, you know, I'm really curious. You tend to apologize quite a bit. Did you know how often you apologize? I'm really kind of curious about why you do this. And just make it lighthearted and bring it up, because that person may not even be aware, but it might be when you do bring it up, that kind of aha moment for them, where they're like, do I? Oh my God.
Yes. And that's the part I think is so crazy, is that people are so unaware. A lot of times we have no awareness. We don't have a mindfulness. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Right.
It could be your very asking of that question is the one moment that sparks them to think about it. Yeah.
Right. Because the next time somebody like slams into me with their cart, I'm going to be like, I'm not going to apologize, but I'm going to say, excuse me.
Yeah, that was your fault. Not mine. I didn't just jump out of nowhere with my cart.
And I love doing that. And it was just, you know, it was like today. It was so incredible. I was in a parking lot and I had the right of way, and somebody comes out from the left and just jumps right into me. And they have this sticker on their back of their window, and it says, "No, stupid." And I was like, oh my gosh.
I love that when the bumper stickers on somebody's car is like the epitome of irony.
Right?
Like,
and really? I was like, no. Oh my gosh. And then I had to think about my reaction. Do I honk? Do I, you know, and by no means in that scenario did I think, I'm sorry.
I go, if somebody's wrong, and depending what I'm like, I want you to know. I want you to know because I want you. And then the coach in me wants, I want you to become a better driver. But I'm pissed off too. I'm pissed off because of your stupid driving decisions.
And that's where the balance comes in. Truly, when we're talking about I'm sorry, so that's really where the balance comes in between how do you nurture yourself and then how do you nurture others? And where is that balance between saying I'm sorry and then just saying, I don't have to say I'm sorry for that unless it is actually justified or that I feel like there's a real need for it. But to say it continuously or to be somebody who chronically apologizes is just, something we need to think about because it becomes so inauthentic. And there are ways of working on that. So I did go over that. If you've missed any of this, you always can go to our YouTube page, The Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen, and watch the replay and also subscribe and share.
Yes, subscribe.
Okay, so we kind of got into the second question when you had mentioned mindset, right? You just mentioned mindset. So let's go to your question because I think, oh my gosh, your question is a great question as well. And I love it. Okay, so the question is, all right. The question is, I keep hearing the phrase abundance mindset in relation to money. What are some tips to support an abundance mindset?
Awesome question. I think before we dive into this, I think sometimes it's important to be able to define the opposite because sometimes we need that context of what the heck is abundance mindset? Well, let's look at the opposite, which means scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about scarcity mindset, what we're referring to is that feeling like, there's just not enough. You might not even be verbally saying it, but it's really in your feeling, in your being that you're realizing, oh, well, there's not enough. Like, well, here's the thing. It's not just limited to money. It spills over into relationships and time and resources and how you're using it. So scarcity mindset is thinking that there's not enough. Thinking, let's say, for example, and this is taken from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, not successful. Effective people. Yeah, I messed that up in the last show. And so, whatever, they're both good adjectives. You want to be both, right? So the thing was like, for example, there's a pie and then there's a piece that's been taken out. And then you look at it like, oh, well, there's not enough. Like there's not enough for everybody. That's like a scarcity mindset. Why don't you think that there's enough for everybody? When you think about it, abundance is all about believing and knowing that there is enough out there in the universe, in the real world for all of us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go over 5 things that will pinpoint, do you have a scarcity mindset? And then what are the signs that are showing scarcity? But then how do we flip that so that you can take action knowing how to approach this with an abundance mindset? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one is believing. The scarcity mindset will say that there is a belief that all situations are permanent. And what do I mean by that? Take, for example, what we're dealing with right now. You may look at this situation with you not working, this thing with COVID and all that's happening. You might look at it like, well, this is just how it is. You might just be taking it at face value rather than looking at situations as temporary, rather than looking at it like, well, this is going to pass. Like I can do better. Or even take it a step further. An abundance mindset will look at it. This is an adventure. Okay, so this is what I'm dealing with. This is where I'm at. What can I do with what I have, where I'm at right now? What can I do? And so you may, depending on the situation that you're in right now, I'm telling you, there are people who made more money this year during COVID than they had in their business in any other year.
Yeah.
And it's your mindset, because you could have easily had the scarcity mindset and say, well, that's it. And then just give up and then just take whatever was given to you. Or you could have said, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to figure this out. This is the situation. What can I do? And so that's what the abundance mindset says. It's like, this is an adventure. What can I do with what I have right now? So that's the first one, where you're looking at situations aren't always permanent. They're going to be these things that you pass through. But it's your decision of whether you want to stay there or if you want to take whatever it is that you have right now and move forward. So the second one is the thoughts and words of scarcity. You really got to pay attention to the words and the thoughts that you're using. I don't think it's a bad thing that you think about it. because I think that it's good reference that you understand, like, okay, this came through my mind, but it's when you start to embody. I love that Dr. Summer used this word. Are you embodying it? Because that's the problem, and that's the danger. When you start to embody those things and realize, or you start to make it part of your character, then we have an issue, because you are now taking those words in and be like, okay, this is what I believe, this is how it is, and I can't do anything about it. But an abundance mindset is going to say the opposite. So let's go back. A scarcity mindset will say, I'm not smart enough. This is how it is. I can't do this. I just have to do without. The opposite would be an abundance mindset that says, I can handle this. I can always make more money. My mind is powerful. Do you see, even energetically, it feels different. Energetically, like even when I'm telling you guys, when I say the scarcity mindset, I can feel my energy just going, you know, I can just feel it. Like, I'm just like, but when I say the other stuff, I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm motivated. I'm just focused right on the show right now, but I can feel it. Like, I want to move forward. I want to go forward, and I want to make progress.
Right.
And I'm telling you, all this stuff is intertwined. Your thoughts, your actions, your energy, the type of energy that you're putting out, it drastically has an effect on the energy that comes in. And I talk about this a lot in money coaching, where you have to understand that money has a very energetic flow to it. And we're going to talk about that in point number 4. But you really got to pay attention to the words that you're using. Your words and your thoughts are extremely powerful. I think some people just completely underestimate this. You got to learn how to catch yourself when you're saying things like, I can't do this. I don't have enough. Like, well, I'm just broke. You have got to learn how to eliminate those kinds of words from your vocabulary.
And let me jump in here for a second, because we've talked about this before on previous shows, where the words and phrases that we use really impact how we strategically do things in our lives, and also what we create in regards to a brain map, what I call brain mapping. And it's not a brain map in relation to an X-ray and what they would refer to as a brain map, but it is a brain map where you are creating a map of how you feel about the world, your outlook on the world, by the phrases, the words and phrases that you use. If you continue to use these, this is going to turn into a belief for you.
Yes.
So change that belief. Change it. As Jen said, you can change that. You can reframe that. You can turn that around.
Super powerful. And just a side note, y'all, if I know sometimes some people may be like, oh, that's some woo-woo-ish. No, it's not. Because for me, I wanted to be I wanted to be a doctor. So a part of me, I have a biology background as well. A part of me understands the validity of science. And I'm telling you, this stuff is rooted in science.
It is. And it really is.
This woman is a doctor of psychology, okay? So, I want you all to know where this is all coming from. The other thing too is that, even at the biochemical, at the neurological level, it's not just like, oh, just think of this. Like, no, I'm telling you guys, like, your thoughts create these grooves in your gray matter.
Absolutely.
So the more you start to think of these negative thoughts, it starts to, like a record. I can't remember if we talked about this last week, like a record. It starts to create those grooves like music. It's the same thing with your brain. You start to continue to think of these negative thought patterns. It starts to literally create these grooves in your brain.
Mapping.
Exactly. This is why I love
that analogy. I love that analogy about the grooves in the record. And many of you may not know or have been exposed to what a record is. Go check it out and you'll know.
Right. For those of you who are not millennials, like y'all know what we're talking about. There was this thing back in the day. Vinyl.
And it skipped. And you.
Yes. So there was this thing called a record, right? And, but the basic premise of it was that it created these grooves that produce the sound that you hear, and the music will play. No different than the grooves that you are creating or producing in your brain. You've got to be very mindful of the kind of grooves that you're creating in your gray matter, because you're reinforcing that thought. This is why it's so important that you pay attention to the thoughts, the actions, because you're reinforcing that literally into your brain. Again, I love going back to science, because for some of you who don't want to believe this and you think this is woo-woo, I can tell you I will back it up with science. I will tell you the biochemical pathways. I will tell you the kind of biochemical neurons and whatever comes out of it. There is science that backs up the things that we're telling you. So anyways, let's not go off on that tangent. So number 3. Number 3.
I'm so excited about these concepts because they are really exciting and they're practical. You can use these. They're simple. It's reframing and the words and phrases you tell yourself. So it has to do with a lot of areas. We might get a question like this particular question, but you can really apply this to many areas of your life. So go ahead. We're on number 3, right?
So number 3, and I gotta blow past this.
That's okay.
Science and all this. So number 3 is being envious of others. And a scarcity mindset is going to have that imposter syndrome where we're thinking about the lack. I don't have the bigger house. I don't have the nice luxury car. We were laughing because we were talking about like, well, they have a better spouse. Like, I mean, whatever the heck it is. I mean, we got to be careful that we're comparing ourselves. And an abundance mindset is going to look at things as, hey, I have gratitude. I am so blessed. I have so many things going for me. I have so much in my life that I'm thankful for. So pay attention to if that is what's coming up, if that's what you're experiencing, could it be that you have moved away from having this attitude of gratitude? You might hear that. It's, again, I hate to say this, it might be one of those buzzwords, but gratitude is so important. So important. And so moving on to the 4th one, are you not being generous? That's a scarcity mindset. And I'm going to challenge you, because some of you might be thinking like, well, I don't got any money. I can barely pay my bills. How you want me to be generous? It doesn't have to be financially. Why are you cracking up, girl?
What are you saying? You just crack me up. You know how you make me laugh. I love it.
I love her. I love this girl. Yeah. Because I know you're thinking that I can barely pay my bills. Why are you telling me to be generous? It doesn't have to be with your money. It doesn't have to be financially. Do you have, okay, because if you're not making money, it's probably because you're not working, so you got some kind of time. You can be generous with your time. You can be generous with your relationships. Are you spending time with people that you love? Okay, I'm trying to think of all the excuses you guys might be throwing at me. You can get on Zoom. You're doing Facebook Live right now. I don't care if you just get on the phone. Connect with somebody. That's you being generous with your time. It doesn't have to, I'm not asking you to make a $50,000 check with the giant check. Okay? Like, if you don't have the money, it's okay. You can just be generous with your time. That's what I want you to get into the thought process of, are you being generous, period? Okay? Because that generosity is what's allowing you to be generous with your time, your resources, and it's creating this flow of energy of you giving so that more can come back to you. I want you to really stop and ask yourself, if nothing's coming in, you got to question what's going out. If it's nothing, there's your sign.
Right.
There's your sign, and if you're a believer, if you do tithing and stuff, one of the things I always check myself with, like, have I given back to God? I look at all these things, if I haven't given time, this is why, I'm part of a board of directors. I look at all these things because I'm telling you, everything that we are saying, we had to practice it ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I run a nonprofit, and as you said, you are on the board of directors of a nonprofit. You know what that, or for-profit, I'm not sure, but it's like, what that means. And that means your time, effort, and energy. That simply means sometimes when you're thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to call that person back, rather than saying, oh my gosh, I've got to call that person back. Oh, I'm going to call that person back and maybe give them a little bit of my time, effort, and energy because I want to, and there's a refrain.
It could be that simple. It doesn't always have to be dollars are nice. Don't get me wrong, because I look at the financials, but if you are not in that position, giving of your time and resources is good. It's the whole concept and energy backing up the actions, okay? And the 5th one, because we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Overindulging. Okay. What do I mean by that? Have you ever had this day, a scarcity mindset? Let's say, for example, you had a bad day and then you say like, hey, you know what? Well, I deserve it because I had a bad day. Then you go out and put on your credit card that device that you wanted, or shoes, or whatever the heck it is, you put it on the credit card that you couldn't even afford, but you justify the spending by saying, well, I had a bad day, I deserve it. Versus an abundance mindset that will say, you know what, why don't I just be more productive with my time? Why don't I spend time with a loved one and be intentional and make it constructive and all those things? Because again, it's not about the money. It's the intention and the energy behind the action that you're doing. And so, because again, if you couldn't afford that device, but you're just racking up more debt, but you want to justify because you had a bad day, you got to really look at the actions that you're taking. And so it's so important. And then it's, you don't want to succumb to that temporary pleasure. You don't want to make your situation worse. You got to pay attention to the overindulging. And so again, it comes back to gratitude. Are you paying attention that I do have enough? I am blessed. I do have all my needs and wants are being met. So that's the fifth one, overindulging. Just pay attention, because you don't want to be caught up in that, like, well, I had a bad day, I deserve it, I should go shopping. Then what's going to happen when that's all said and done? You might be in a much worse position, and that's going to be another episode in the future.
Absolutely. And we talked about that last week, Jen. We talked about what you're going to end up with if you overindulge even in buying gifts. What's that going to look like in the new year for you, and how are you going to feel about those bills? I mean, so this applies to all of these tips that you have provided today apply to so many different areas of our lives. We can even apply that to eating. What are you going to feel like if you overindulge?
Oh my gosh.
What does that feel like? And how does your body feel? I mean, this applies to so many areas. So thank you. Thank you for all these wonderful tips. And if by chance, folks, you did not get the opportunity to see this entire show, please go to our YouTube page, the Life Loving Love and Money Show with Summer and Jen page, and subscribe, share with your friends. We would love that. So,
yes. And I just want to close out and just say, so you know what I just want you to walk away from is be grateful, practice gratitude, and just be selfless. Pay attention to the time and resources and energy that you're putting out there and the words that you're using. And when you start to do those things, that's what's going to help you start to adopt and adapt and embrace an abundance mindset. So yes.
Thank you so much. I'm writing something here. Subscribe.
Yes, everyone. Head over to our YouTube. Just type in Life, Love, and Money.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would love your support.
Thank you. We want to thank you so much for being with us today on the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Again, if you've missed any part of this, you can go to our YouTube page and subscribe, share. We will be back next Wednesday. We are doing this on Wednesday today and next week because of the holidays. We will go back to our regular schedule after next week, which would be Thursday. But next week, we will see you again on Wednesday, same time, same pages. So please DM your questions to us here on any of our pages, our Life, Love, and Money pages, Summer or Jen pages. And we so appreciate you. And again, happy holidays.
Yes. So before we sign off, hold on. So Summer, what is your nugget of the day before everybody goes off and to celebrate Christmas?
Oh, it is just, I love so many things you say. And I think what you've said today in relation to one of the tips, it is, don't compare yourself. Never compare yourself or your situation to others. That's just going to get you into a buttload of trouble. And honestly, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. You don't know if somebody's paying, for their rent on their credit card, if you just don't know, or if they were given some kind of, fund or something, you just don't know. And your situation is different from somebody else's situation in relation to money, in relation to finance, in relation to relationships, in relation to everyday life. Don't compare. never compare. So there's my nugget of wisdom.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, mine is just, I want you all to just ask yourself, what are you worthy of? Far too often, let's go back to the first question. There's a lot of times why people say, I'm sorry. Are you worthy? Do you really believe that you are deserving and worthy of all the abundance that's out there in the world, in the universe, and whatever God has planned for you? You get so caught up in, this, and I get it. There are times that are tough. Many people are suffering. But at the end of the day, what I want you to ask yourself is that, do you really feel worthy? Because when you don't, you're blocking those blessings. You're blocking that flow of energy and money coming to you. So I want you to pay attention to that you really, truly embrace and believe that you do deserve so much that this life and this world has to offer you.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you, everybody, again, for your time and for watching the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. We'll see you next week on Wednesday. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.
That's right. Happy holidays.
Thank you for watching the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Dr. Summer Watson is the owner of the production and coaching company Core Women, LLC, is a doctor of psychology, has a depth of experience working in both for-profit and nonprofit in human services and mental health, is a professional coach, seminar host, documentary film producer, and an author. Jen Fontania is a former financial advisor and now a certified money coach, speaker, and has published 6 books. She has worked with organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Target, Goodwill, and the U.S. Air Force. She loves working with women and helps them master their money and mindset to empower them to build the ultimate life without worrying about money. Join Summer and Jen every week as they go live on the Life, Love, and Money Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn.